Welcome in, everybody. Sports Take on this Monday. Rob Ellis, Derek Gunn, Barrett, and Root from Arizona. Good to see you, as always, my friend Gunner, hanging out with you on a Monday that, if you are a Philadelphia Eagles fan, is a tough pill to swallow, man. Gunner, I always say there are losses, and then there are losses, man.
Yes.
And this is one that will leave a mark. This is one that will leave a scar. This is a game that you were up 10 at the half. Teams going into last night's game in the Super Bowl with a double-digit lead were 26-1. The only loss was that Falcons game where Kyle Shanahan fell apart in that game, and Matt Ryan to Tom Terrific and whatnot. But Eagles end up losing the game 38-35 to the Chiefs. Well, listen, this is going to be a full-blown recap of everything that went down in the game. You know, interestingly enough, you and I think we're kind of on the same page this week in that there was a lot of chatter in the Philadelphia area that this was going to be some kind of blowout, some kind of game where the Eagles are going to run away with it. And I don't want to speak for you. I didn't see it at all. I thought this was tight down to the wire kind of game. The Chiefs are just too damn good to get blown out by the Eagles.
Well, I mean, we were in unison last week. I kept saying it was a close game. You kept saying it's a close game. Barrett thought it was going to be a blowout, and the whole region thought it was going to be a blowout because of what the Eagles did to the Giants, to the 49ers. But people didn't listen. I kept telling them last week, Mahomes and Andy Reid and Mahomes are that dude. They are that dude.
Yep.
And people didn't want to hear it when I kept saying, you have to discount. You have to discount all the rookies they were playing on the back end because they had played much better from mid-December on. The fact that they were still the number one offense in the league after 17 games. The fact that they were the number one scoring offense. That dude that just won the MVP again the other night through 41 touchdown passes.
Mm-hmm.
You can't overlook this kind of stuff, you know. And I understand, yes, the Eagles had the superior team on paper. But you know what? And we talk about this all the time. The best team on paper doesn't always win it. You know, that undefeated New England's team that went 17-0, they got beat by the Giants in a Super Bowl. It happens.
Yep.
It happens, you know. And I understand why people were jacked up. If people had been a little bit more even-keeled, excited, but this fan base was jacked up about them crushing the Chiefs and everything. But see, now that we look at it in hindsight, people are crashing down now. It's not like the Phillies when they lost to Houston in the World Series. As much as we wanted the Phillies to win, the better team won that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like that's where I'm at with this. Like, I'm not going to sit here and make an excuse over a holding call from Bradbury. It's a borderline call. It's probably one you let go. But here's the way I look at it. There were 4 possessions the Chiefs had in the second half.
Yep.
3 touchdowns and a field goal. And the field goal very easily would have been a touchdown had they not chose to slide down and just milk the clock to make the smart play, by the way. They made the smart play.
McKinnon made the best play of the game.
Absolutely. No question. Your defense that had been so vaunted all year got dominated in the second half in the biggest moments. Your defense that had 78 sacks going into this game had none. In fact, Gunner, they had 1 tackle for a loss. So if you want to look at why they lost the game, that's why they lost the game. You also gave up a crap ton of yards on the ground in the rushing attack. Kansas City was able to run the ball, stay committed to running the ball. In fact, they ran it 26 times for 158 yards. That's 6.1 yards per carry, meaning you got dominated in the air because Mahomes was 13 for 14 in the second half.
Yep.
And you got dominated on the ground. And, you know, basically it was a tale of 2 halves. The Eagles offense didn't let the Chiefs offense get on the field in the first half.
No.
Second half, the Chiefs offense didn't let the Eagles offense get on the field.
Flip the script on them.
100%. And Andy Reid outcoached Nick Sirianni and the Eagles coaching staff. Steve Spagnuolo outcoached Eric Bieniemy. Their coaches collectively did a far superior job, and their players did a far superior job. Let's not let the players off the hook with all just the Gannon blame. And by the way, let me just say this. Gannon got his ass handed to him. As a defender, as a bandwagon guy, I keep it real. You know that. I pull no punches. He stunk yesterday. Now
you understand why I could never totally get on the Gannon wagon because of things that I saw. And I know people don't want to hear this, and the stats are what they are, but look at the teams they ran up these stats on defensively, man.
Yeah.
9 sacks here, 8 sacks there. Look at the quality of opponent they ran up those stats on.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Aaron Rodgers with no receivers, and Rodgers didn't finish that game.
Right.
Well, they beat Minnesota. Minnesota's a fraud. We kept saying that all season long, okay? They beat the Giants 3 times. The Giants were a growing team. The Giants weren't even supposed to be in the playoffs.
Right.
Okay, so they beat inferior opponent because they had the superior teams.
Mm-hmm.
You went up against the best of the best, and you failed.
Exactly.
And you failed. I mean, and that's not nitpicking. Those are the facts. And I'm not surprised that Gannon got his butt handed to him by Andy Reid yesterday. Can we stop this myth also? I mean, can we stop? Andy Reid's an overrated coach. I don't want to hear that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that anymore.
Darren.
Andy Reid's been to 4 Super Bowls. He's 2-2, and he's won 2 of his last 3 appearances in the Super Bowl.
No,
I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah, he has cemented, as if he hadn't already. But if you had any questions, he just rubber stamped, the legend of Andy Reid. That's for sure. And by the way, how about Mahomes being 5 years as a starter? Okay.
Oh my goodness.
He's won multiple MVPs, multiple Super Bowl MVPs, multiple Super Bowls.
Yes.
He is quickly rising, and he's got probably at least 10 years in front of him, by the way. He has quickly rose, in my opinion, into any conversation. I'm not saying he's Brady, but I'm saying he is skyrocketing up the list really, really fast. That's a great football player. I'm
not going to say he's Brady, but he's the new GOAT. He is the new GOAT in the NFL.
Absolutely.
No question. Before the game, there was speculation and rumor circulated that Andy Reid had said basically to the media, I have a decision to make after this game. As soon as that game was over, what did Andy Reid say? Well, I'll be back next year.
No question. What would you walk away from? You got Patrick Mahomes.
Not only that, you did this with multitudes of rookies and second-year players.
You're young, and you have a great front office that supports you. Like, if your health's right, you're not walking away from this.
You won 17 out of 20 games with a bunch of rookies on the back end of your defense, a rookie defensive end, a second-year middle linebacker, and a bunch of cast-offs at wide receiver. Everybody thought they were going to the dumpster when Tyreek Hill went to Miami, and you picked up a guy from Pittsburgh. You picked up a guy from Green Bay. You picked up a cast-off from the Giants. And what did you do in that system? You made them stars in that system. Mm-hmm. That's all you did. And I want to go back to your boy Gannon for just a moment. Now, I understand the field conditions were atrocious. The NFL should be ashamed of themselves for allowing that to happen. But Kansas City had receivers running wide open all over the field all game long. Even when the Eagles were up by 10 points, Kansas City had receivers free all in the second half. It just got worse. It was like Jonathan Gannon went to prevent defense because dudes was in the flats, over the middle. The one pass, and I can't remember if it was the third or fourth quarter. Mahomes hits Schuster along the sideline. He's wide open. Avonte Maddox let him go, and the safety never came over. And after the play, you see Slay and Avonte yelling at each other. That's when you know you're inside a defense's head. That when you have defensive players bickering like that, that's when you know you have a problem with your personnel and your scheme. And people are always saying, why would you defer when you take the opening kickoff, when you win the coin toss? Why would you defer? Well, this is Kansas City. Why wouldn't you defer? Because sure enough, they're down 10 points at halftime. They get the ball coming out in the second half. They go right down the field. Meticulous drive right down the field. Punch it in the end zone. Now they're within 3. And you cannot tell me that did not shake the Eagles' vaunted defense up. You cannot tell me that. Because this defense could not get to Mahomes. The closest they got to Mahomes the whole game, he was falling forward. He flips the pass, and Travis Kelce picks it up off the turf and makes a catch. Everything the Eagles thought they could do, Kansas City kept telling them, no, you cannot. And I know a lot of people want to say fire Gannon, and maybe so. I personally think Gannon just cost himself the job in Arizona. I honestly believe that. When you're on the biggest of big stages, when you put up those kind of numbers, 78 sacks, combined regular season and postseason, your defense puts more pressure on anybody else in the National Football League. Your rotation is second to none on defense in terms of getting pressure. And basically everybody on your defense was a no-show. All of your 4-digit pass rushers, your vaunted beef in the middle of that defensive line. Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams. Where were you? Where were you? Because it wasn't like Kansas City was hitting you with a bunch of outside zone reads on a running game. They were trapping you to the inside, and you never adjusted. Didn't make a difference if you were in a 4-man front or a 5-man front. And much of the time, they were in a 4-man front, dropping more people back into coverage, and the Chiefs still had players running free up and down the field. How's that possible? I don't care if you're playing zone. I don't care if you're playing man-to-man. You had extra people back in coverage, and Kansas City was still finding people wide open in the middle of the field, down the sidelines. We can blame a lot of this on Jonathan Gannon's scheme. How about blaming the personnel that makes a lot of money, that made a lot of names for themselves this season, not showing up in the biggest game of all? Where were you, Darius Slay? Bradbury, you played a decent game. You got caught. Now, I'll give Bradbury credit for one thing. He came out after the game and said, yes, I was holding. He said, but I thought the refs might let it go, but they didn't. Now, everybody was holding. Everybody was holding the whole game. It's just the nature of the beast. Everybody's holding. But Bradbury got caught, and everybody said it was a bogus call. Questionable call, yes. Bogus call, no. The player himself said, yeah, I was holding. That's all I need to hear. James Bradbury stood up, took the heat, was held himself accountable for getting caught at a crucial moment of the game, and it cost him. I thought the Eagles had a pretty good game plan in the first half. They went down the field, they scored. But the defense lets Kansas City go right back down the field and score. Eagles get the lead back again. All of a sudden, Jalen Hurts does something he does not normally do. Jalen Hurts drops the ball. Initially, when you're looking at it, you're thinking somebody stripped him. He was switching hands, dropped the ball. Nick Bolton picked it up, touchdown. But you still had a 10-point lead and have to see. You tried to leave me, Rob. Are you back?
Sorry, I'm here.
Are you back now?
I promise I'm here. Yeah, I don't. Yes, I'm with you. My apologies. My apologies. I'm not going anywhere, man. I promise. I got like triple-digit backups going here, so we should be fine.
But it's a game of momentum. It's a game of inches and centimeters. You had the Chiefs dead to rights after the first 30 minutes of this game.
Yep.
You had them dead to rights. And the little things that got you to the Super Bowl, you couldn't do consistently over the last 30 minutes. You couldn't do it all. You couldn't get off the field.
No.
You let them walk down the field. And I was talking about, Rob, how everybody talks about when you win the coin toss. In a game like this, why would you defer? Now you saw why Kansas City deferred. Kansas City was not worried about the Eagles. The only thing Kansas City was worried about was picking up their pace and playing their game. Now, whatever they saw, and that extended halftime, 29 minutes instead of 12 minutes, gave Andy Reid and his coaching staff an extra 17 minutes to figure this thing out.
Yep.
And my goodness, did they figure it out.
Boy, did they ever. Yeah, you're right. This is, like, I think you and I are very similar in this sense. Like, I would never sit here. I don't make excuses. The Eagles lost the game, period. This wasn't about Bradbury.
No.
This wasn't about slippery turf or any of that kind of stuff. It is about you not getting the job done. It's about you not being able to get stops. I'll ask you this, Derek. Other than maybe the C.J. Gardner-Johnson hit on Pacheco, which was nasty.
Woo!
Okay?
That was
big time, big time. Other than that, tell me who stepped up and made a play on defense. Anybody. Give me any of the 11 that were out there.
Nobody. I said going into this game, when we talked on Friday with Barrett, we were talking about the best way to stop Kelsey. And I said, you don't stop Kelsey. You try to contain him. Comes out of the gate, they doubled him. They had a guy in front of him, a guy behind. He catches the pass anyway. First pass, he catches right between them. Okay.
Yep.
He had 3 catches for 60 yards in the first half. He didn't have to have 10, 12 catches. He did what he was supposed to do. When they tried to take him out of the game, all of a sudden, some guy named Sky Moore pops up.
Smith-Schuster
popped up.
He got on a run there in the third.
He came out in the third quarter. It was like that was the most impressive thing. Whatever they identified in the Eagles' coverage or lack thereof, they knew that Schuster could be the guy. Now, Did you see Kansas City dropping any passes in this
No.
game? What the heck was Quez Watkins doing? That was a perfectly thrown ball.
He stinks.
Perfectly
Okay.
thrown ball.
Yeah, it's enough with him. That he should not be on the team next year. You need to upgrade your third wide receiver position in a big way. Plain and simple.
To me, he's John Hightower part 2.
Yeah, he is.
Simple.
I think Hightower contributes more. I don't care that he has speed. I hear that all the time. You can find a lot of guys who can run. You got to be able to catch the ball. The running part's great because it gets you open, but if you can't catch it, who cares?
Who cares? You're a liability and not an asset.
And you just can't have they got away all year with a sketchy special teams. And they overcame it because they were just, either better than the team or just didn't bite them or whatever. You had one job to do if you're Aaron Sippos. One. And he kicked it the other way from where the coverage was headed. He shanked it. It was short, and it was the wrong side for where the coverage was headed. And that kills you. You can't turn the ball over and gift them 7 points on an unforced error, and you essentially can't give up what amounted to basically a touchdown on a punt. I know they punched in 3 plays later. You can't do that. If you do that against a good team in a Super Bowl, you lose. As much as the defense to me is the ultimate culprit, those plays are what killed you. They killed you. And it's a shame because Jalen Hurts was awesome.
We talk about how the Eagles don't have a dangerous threat in the return game. Kansas City has several.
Yep.
Because if you go back to the Cincinnati game, it was Sky Moore who took a punt back and put them in prime position.
Yep.
To get a touchdown.
It ended up being the game-winning field goal drive. Yep.
Okay. In this game, Tony was back there. Of all people, Kadarius Toney, who was a cast-off of the Giants, he's back there. And what does he do? He takes it, 60-something yards and puts him in prime position?
Yeah.
You knew the specialty. Everything that we thought was corrected with this Eagles team in the regular season came to surface. We thought the run defense was fixed. We thought special teams was fixed. We thought Jonathan Gannon and Nick Sirianni's play calling ability and scheme calling ability had been fixed. Everything that we had concerns about in the regular season that we felt good about going into the playoffs, the way they ran over the Giants and the 49ers blew up on them in this one game, the most
100%.
important game of the year.
In the most important spot. Yeah, you got to have everything buttoned up. You got to have your I's dotted, your T's crossed in this kind of game. And there's no doubt in my mind that Andy Reid, with the adjustments they made at the half and Spags and Bieniemy, everybody across the board, they outcoach. I mean, think about how many times, Derek, this year, I'll go back to something else that we saw all year that the Eagles were good at. All season long, and there may have been 1 or 2 instances. I don't remember any kind of time management questions with Nick Sirianni. I don't remember the play clock running down, and all of a sudden you have to burn a timeout or you get a delay a game. I don't remember that happening all year. That was all the time last night, to the point where they cut away to Sirianni the one time, get the damn play in, is basically what I think I cleaned it up a little bit, but that's what he said. You could read his lips. Steichen came up small. Again, obviously came up small. So this was, really all 3 of them, your 3 big boys. Throw Michael Clay in there, who should be gone, by the way. All of those guys came up small. Meanwhile, Kansas City's guys came up big. There wasn't a sense of urgency enough in the second half. I'm screaming, go up tempo just to break it up a little bit offensively. And it took forever to even get to that point.
Two things that really caught my eye. Number one, on the touchdown, the Eagles drove down the field to tie it at 35. They took way too much time. It was an 8-play drive, but it took over 4 minutes. It was like they were uncertain of what they wanted to do. You played 19 and a half games up to this point, and you're not certain about what you want to do at that point. That drive was too methodical, knowing that other team was getting the ball back, and you hadn't stopped them the entire second half. And number two, I emphasized this several times on the postgame show, and Seth and Mike Missinelli are like, "You're right." I said, look at Kansas City's secondary. They played press coverage the entire game, okay? Yep. They took their lumps. They got burned for a touchdown. They got burned on other big plays. They didn't back off, did they? They kept playing press coverage the entire game. This other defense that had a Pro Bowl over here should have had another Pro Bowl corner. You had Pro Bowlers Most of the defense was Pro Bowl caliber defense.
Mm-hmm.
It was like they were playing flag football. He wouldn't come up and play press coverage more than he should have. You got to make Mahomes on one leg stand back there and pat the ball. You let that man get in the rhythm. You gave him the cushions. He killed you underneath. You made no adjustments whatsoever. Your 4-man front couldn't get home. Your 5-man front couldn't get home. Was the field nasty? Everybody slipping. But guess what? I saw as many Kansas City players slipping and sliding across the field as I did Eagles. They had to play in the same field. As atrocious as that field was. They had to play. But they took the Eagles' run game from them, except for Hurts. The second half, they took a lot of the big plays from the Eagles. The Eagles took nothing from Kansas City over that last 30 minutes. Nothing. Kansas City took what they wanted from this Eagles team in the last 30 minutes.
No doubt. There is no question about it. That's why, like, to me, I get frustration with certain things. I get, you prefer they don't call that on Bradbury. Understood. I get the overturning of the Devontae Smith catch and all that. I get the turf was bad. That's all well and good. And it's a part of the game. It's a piece of it. But it's not ultimately why the Eagles lost this game. There are no excuses. They are the ones who weren't able to get it. Like, I'll give you just to draw an analogy to Super Bowl 52, Derek, which you were right there watching the game in Minneapolis. The defense couldn't do anything in that game either, right? And Brady's going up and down the field. We all know what happened. 500 yards in the whole night. When they had to get a stop, when they had to make a play, they made a play.
Yes.
Brandon Graham gets a strip sack. Barnett recovers. It leads to a field goal, puts you up 8, and then you get the final play where it doesn't happen, the Hail Mary. But however that game went, when you had to get a stop and when you were desperate, you got one. You didn't get one in this game.
No.
Plain and simple.
No. You got what you needed in the first half. You kept Mahomes off the field. You had the ball almost double the time that Kansas City had the ball in the first half. You kept that dude off the field, and you took advantage of the situation. Instead of getting better, you got a whole lot worse. Not offensively. I'm just defensively. You got a lot worse.
Yeah.
And Kansas City was trapping them left and right on run plays. And I don't understand how a 5-man front, this vaunted 5-man front that was so stout in the regular season and the first 2 playoff games, had gaping holes in it. The linebackers were out of position. The front 4 and the front 5 taking the wrong routes to the quarterback or off the snap. And everywhere you were, Kansas City wasn't. You went this way, Kansas City went that way. You went that way, Kansas City went this way. Yeah. And the worst offensive lineman on Kansas City's offensive line probably had his best game of the season. Andrew Wiley.
Wiley played very well. Yeah.
Probably his best game of the season.
And he was very smart and strategic in that he realized, because of the ridiculous turf situation, that Reddick, his game is speed. He's a speed guy. He is what he thrives on. And if you can't drive well or cut well or make moves well and you're slipping down, Wiley played right into that and just pancaked him and sat on him.
Yeah, and sat
on honestly. And again, this is no excuse, but it probably was the worst case scenario in terms of those conditions for a guy like Reddick, who isn't just a power guy.
Yeah. And Reddick came out and said after the game it was probably the worst field he had ever played on before. Yeah. Now,
Mailata said the same thing. Mailata said he likened it to a water park. Now, he didn't. He said we were both out there. He said that. Yeah. He said both teams were out there, so I'm not making excuses. So I'm just pointing it out. It was like kind of worst case scenario in that sense. But yeah, no excuse. Like, we're not like the 49ers and the Cowboys. We're not sniveling crybaby biatches. We don't sit there and blame that. The Eagles lost the game. It's a bottom line.
There's no question about it. You had to see if they got blown out right from the start, that's one thing. But they were in position to put this game away. And everything they did in the first half, they couldn't do in the second half. They controlled the clock. They mixed it well, although they didn't run the ball all that well, except for Jalen Hurts. The quarterback run plays were spectacular when they had to be.
Yep.
But Hurts the entire game was under too much distress.
Yep.
And I still don't understand that, because Kansas City, although they had 55 sacks in the season, they're not this elite rushing team, but yet they found a way they could get consistent. How many times was Hurts running for his life, throwing the ball away?
Derek, we went in the game saying the offensive line and the defensive line were the Eagles' strengths. They were better across the board, both places. Eagles offensive line didn't do well run blocking
No.
because other than Hurts, nobody could run the ball. 17
No.
rushes, 45 yards, 2.7 yards per carry. They didn't pass block. If you didn't have a guy as mobile as Hurts, they would have had 7 sacks last night.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. Because they were chasing that man all over the field. And the thing is, Spagnuolo went to zero coverage. Spagnuolo sent his young troops out there in a lot of zero coverages because he was going to make Hurts make decisions a lot sooner. Hurts burned him a number of times, but Spags didn't back off. He did not back off. Jonathan Gannon never came to the party.
Nope.
His dudes never came to the party.
Nope.
Rob, we've watched a lot of football, and when you have two good teams, when the first 30 minutes is over, the first thing you're thinking is, I can't wait to see the adjustments in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
Only one team made those adjustments. That other guy kept playing that prevent defense. You know, I don't have, and it just resonates. I don't have a scheme. I have a philosophy. What the heck was your philosophy? And I know coordinators don't. I would love to have seen somebody ask Gannon, what was your philosophy for this game?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, because whatever it was, you should never do it again. Never.
Well,
never do it again.
After the first 2 drives, when it's clear Kansas City is just going right down the field on you, right?
Right.
Don't you try something else? Now, it may not work, but guess what? Whatever you're doing right now isn't working anyway. So if that doesn't work, so be it. But at least you're trying something new here. And for those two plays, like the Sky Moore and the Kadarius Toney touchdown to be the exact same plays, just on other sides, tells me you made no corrections and no adjustments. And again, I don't want to just lay it on Gannon, but Gannon wears the brunt of this. What were the players doing? What was Slay doing? What was Bradbury doing?
If you look on the 2 touchdown plays that were similar on back-to-back drives, on the first touchdown, when the ball is snapped, you had Slay moving to the inside. He's pointing. He's not even looking to see where an outside man is.
Right.
He's inside of. He's almost inside of the end, and he's pointing to the other side of the field. Ball snap, dude standing wide. You and I could have caught that for a touchdown.
There was nobody. Like the coverage was in Tucson. Okay, there was nobody in the vicinity of these guys.
And then the next series, on the opposite side, Avonte Maddox, the ball snapped. He's inside he's inside the tackle. Right. He's looking inside, and the guy's standing there outside.
I know.
He's not even looking at outside containment. And I'm thinking, what?
The coaching, the adjustments made, the execution, none of it was there. You know, let me put it this way. If Kansas City had, I don't know, 3-4 more possessions, I have all the confidence in the world they would have scored 3-4 more touchdowns in that second half. They were doing whatever they wanted to do to the Eagles defense.
I thought it was, and I had picked the Eagles to win 30-27. I was right on the margin of victory, wrong on who was going to win the game.
Yeah.
I didn't think Kansas City could score 38 points. I knew they were going to push the Eagles to score in the high 20s. I didn't think Kansas City could put up. Kansas City only had 14 points in the first half.
Right.
They scored 24 more in the second half.
Insane.
The Eagles had 270 yards of offense in the first half, $147 in the second half. And Miles Sanders may have cost himself some money.
Yeah. But here's the thing with Miles Sanders. Frankly, and he had a really good year. You can't trust him.
No,
you can't trust him. So the very first play from scrimmage, he reverts back into old school Miles and busts it outside, when if he would have just stuck his foot in the dirt, he would have gotten at least 3 yards. He may not have ripped off a big one, but if you just were willing to cut it up, you would have gotten positive yardage. He busts it outside. He fumbles it out of bounds and loses a yard and takes a big shot on top of it because he busted it outside.
Yeah.
Then, and I understand he was shook up after that, but he comes back in the game later. The play in the third quarter, and again, I thought ultimately it was the right call. They overturned the catch, fumble. Right, they called it incomplete. But at that point, I'm screaming, get him off the field, man.
Yes.
I'll take Gainwell and Boston Scott all day over him.
Yes.
He's gone. I mean, he is absolutely gone. Yeah, I don't trust him.
I think Gainwell is right now his replacement, and they're going to either draft another running back in the mid round somewhere, or they'll pick up a low level free agent veteran.
Agreed.
As well. But I think Gainwell is going to be a lead back.
They just won't pay a running back a lot of money.
You look at what Gainwell did in the playoff games and the Super Bowl. Gainwell ran like a beast the whole playoffs. Miles, you don't know which Miles you're going to get. And granted, I'm not taking anything away from the season he had. His first 1,000-yard season, he proved his critics wrong about staying healthy from start to finish, something he hadn't done the previous couple of years. But in the biggest of moments, when everybody who's looking for a running back is critiquing you, you came up the smallest this season. You came up small. And your ball security now is in question. And I think when your lead back only has 7 carries for 16 yards, 7 carries for 16, it tells me the coaching staff didn't trust him. Did not trust him at all. When your quarterback has to do the bulk of the running because he's he's more sure-handed than your 1,000-yard runner, you didn't trust him. You didn't trust him, Rob, at that point.
Absolutely. Look, and he, and again, it's a shame for Hurts, and he did have the big miscue. And we'll talk about the offense in a little bit, but it's a shame because he balled out, other than that, and he didn't have a ton of help, certainly from his backfield. I thought his receivers made some plays, and I'll tell you, Goddard was brilliant in the third quarter. He made some unbelievable catches. Whoa. I mean, it's a shame, Derek. There's going to be some real like Hurts, Goddard, AJ Brown, Devontae, played their hearts out, and it's all going to be for naught. That's the shame of this thing, but that's the way it goes, man. That's for sure. All right, let's come back. Let's dig a little bit deeper into some of the things that went down defensively with this thing. We'll get into the offense. Derek, we'll dive into the free agents that the Eagles had because we talked about it over and over again. This was an opportunity that you had to take advantage of because I don't care what kind of magician Howie is. There's going to be a lot of turnover here because there's a lot of dudes who are free agents who are going to get paid somewhere else. So we'll dive into that as well. Don't go anywhere. He's Derek. I am Rob. We are Sports Take on this Monday, rehashing, unfortunately, an Eagles Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs. I'm going to tell you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group because knowing who to trust with your finances can be a very difficult, very challenging thing. I mean, let's face it, for all of us, and I was right there for a long time, but I found the right person, and I want you to go with the right person as well. Jim's the best. And whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, you might have a small business, you're trying to get your employee benefits off the ground, that's another resource that Jim can assist you with. And I have personally entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers to Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. Look, you got to get this right? It's all about your family. It's about your future. And Jim is the right person for you. Just give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751, or you can email him, Murray, MURRAY, .jim@principal.com. That's Murray.jim@principal.com.